Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter with your Las Vegas Raiders training camp report number 3. Uh, Literally just left practice a short time ago, and it's time for us to dig in and really talk about today's practice. A lot of substance to get into. Been giving you a lot of sizzle, a lot of things that were going on, but uh, a lot of substance today. First, I want to start to something that if you haven't seen, I know that you will. A fan brought a puppet or I think it was a hand puppet of Kermit the Frog that had on a Patrick Mahomes jersey. And no big deal with a fan doing that. That's a fan, and that's what fans do. But Trey Taylor, sorry, I'm thinking it's not Star Wars. The rookie um, safety, very smart guy from Air Force. He grabs it. It was not good. It was not good. Now, you're just giving bulletin board material to the Chiefs. And I already think the Raiders are in their head, but it was just something that could have been avoided. The player did it. The fan took pictures of it. I would have thought a fan would have thought, you know what, this is probably bulletin board material. I probably shouldn't do it, but they did it, and it's now going viral. In fact, I've had several calls from people wanting me to go on their radio shows around the country and talk about it. And I just was an unfortunate thing that happened. Um, this is sometimes, well, no need to get into that. But anyways, it's one of the, when you have exposure to fans, you have to be careful about every single thing you say. You have to be extremely careful about what you do. And it's why sometimes why players are guarded with fans. You never know what's going to be getting taped. You just have to assume everything is. And he's a rookie. So you know what? I am sure there's a great chance that Trey saw a puppet with a Chiefs thing and thought it was cute, didn't realize what it was. But it was just extremely disappointing that it happened. I'll tell you what amazed me is I get a text from an executive at another team that said to me, and I'll just read to you. Not sure if you saw this, and he included the tweet. And this is why we just don't like to have that close of connection between players and fans. You just never know. Now, some of you may say, oh, they're overreacting. Okay. And I totally see all sides of the argument. But I also think it's fair to talk about that's the side of what NFL people think. So interesting. I think it was disappointing for Trey. Um, But again, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's interacting with fans, and somebody gives him a Chiefs hand puppet. What does he? If he doesn't know, I mean, I never heard of Patrick Mahomes being compared to Kermit the Frog until I moved to Vegas to cover the team. Now, of course, I'm very readily aware of it, but that happened, and it was disappointing, but it did. All right, let's get into a lot today about practice. The first thing I want to talk to you about is yesterday I told you I was very impressed with the pace. The pace was not the same today. In fact, it was extremely noticeable. It was a little bit slower. Not a little bit, it was a lot slower. I'm going to be interested to watch that, how that evolves. Because again, I was very impressed with yesterday's pace. I was not impressed with today's pace, and felt like I want to watch that closely. But I just wanted to address it because um, it was so different to me. It was so shocking to me. Now, I also want to tell you, I um, yesterday I informed you that I was looking for texts on something, and it was the Doss signing that the Raiders signed right after I taped my podcast. So I had heard about it. In fact, I'm going to read you the text I got just because I like to be accountable to you. Um, so you may remember on yesterday's podcast, I told you that I was waiting on a text for something to tell you, and here's what it did. Sorry if I already missed the podcast deadline, but the deal is done. You can report it. So, anyways, that was the DOS signing about yesterday. I don't like to do oh, I'm waiting on a phone call and then not tell you what it is just for accountability's sake. But there is that. So, again, I want to reiterate pace. Now, couple things that stood out to me today. The defense had a very, very good day, but there are no pads. So I'm going to get in and I'm going to discuss it for a minute. I think of the two quarterbacks, Aiden O'Connell had a very good day. There were, and I'm going to go in and break down everything that happened. But I'm trying to think of how I want to word this. I think Aiden O'Connell had a very, very good day. There were some drops, but let me tell you what he did. They did a lot of offense, defense in the red zone and on the goal line. And Aiden O'Connell is so careful with the football. There was one particular play where nobody was open. So, and the way the defense was, you really didn't want to take a shot of throwing it out of bounds just because guys are very athletic and maybe somebody leaps. So he just throws the ball into the dirt at somebody's feet. It was a good throw. Now, it would be recorded as an incompletion, but it's a lot better than throwing a potential interception. He was very careful with the football, threw some bullets, did some touch. I thought Aiden O'Connell, if you could call it inconsistent, but when you look at throws he threw away because guys were covered, that's not going to harm him with the coaches. It may hurt him in the stat department. It's not going to harm him with the coaches. That said, Gardner Minshew threw two interceptions. And here's the deal: they're fighting for a job. Aiden's the guy; he's the lead. Gardner's trying to beat him. Okay, now Gardner has a lot of gunslinger in him. He does. That's his nature, and that's great when a gunslinger throws the ball and completes it. But when you take risks with the football, and we've all heard Antonio Pierce talk about this for months, the number one thing he wants in a quarterback is ball security. And I don't think Gardner helps himself. I talked about this yesterday, may have been the day before, about being careful with the football. May have been even a little bit, or may have been 3 or 4 days ago, but I talked about it. And so Gardner has to be careful with that. I would tell you right now, I believe clearly that Aiden O'Connell's the number one guy. Clearly. And Gardner's going to get every chance to compete. It's only 2 days into camp, but he's not going to get the job taking gunslinger risks. I mean, there was one throw that he had, and Jacorian Bennett made a phenomenal play. And I'm going to talk a lot about JB. Phenomenal play. He tips it. Trayvon Merrick gets it, but there's no Trayvon Merrick interception if JB doesn't make a great play. Then there's another one where Gardner had his eyes locked on, throws the pass. Marcus Epps jumps the pass and gets the INT. I thought that Aiden had a good day. Again, I mean, it's not like his passing numbers were going to be 90%, but when you look at the fact he protected the football, he threw the ball away. He had a pass perfect to Doss. Now, on the play, the defense started the play off sides. And then as Doss is going up to make the catch, I told you this yesterday, Aiden put the ball in a place that only Doss was going to get. It couldn't get intercepted. So the defender had to push him out of bounds. So he caught the ball out of bounds, but it still would have been defensive pass interference in the end zone. And another great play by Aiden. Again, if you go stats only, you could say it was an okay day for Aiden. But when you understood the stats within the scheme or within the what happened, it was a great day for Aiden. Gardner, rough day. Now, I want to talk about a couple things because you're going to hear a couple things out of camp that I want to give you some insight on. So, first of all, the defense has no pads, neither does the offense. And they can't hit according to the collective bargaining agreement. So they're not hitting. So the defense is getting to the quarterback very quick. Nowhere near as quick as it would have happened if there were pads. I'm just telling you that flat out. That being said, so it would appear the defense, wow, they got a lot of pressure, and they did. But when you understand there's no pads, so there's really no blocking, they better have a ton of pressure. And people talk about, oh man, but Gardner moved around a lot. I had a fan when I was leaving say to me, wow, I was impressed with how Gardner moved. I said, okay, let me ask you a question. Did you watch how Gardner moved when there were defenders in his face and they couldn't tackle him? So I said, once they get to the backfield where he is, his mobility, you have to just almost have a silent whistle. The play still goes on, but it's not a real play. Aiden O'Connell was getting rid of the ball, even with the defenders coming across the line as quickly as they did. And again, it's not because the offensive line sucked, it's because there's no pads or blocking. Aiden was playing in real time, and at times Gardner was playing in the, I'm going to run here, I'm going to run there, I'm going to run all over the place, even though you're chasing me. And if it was a real game, I would have been tackled. So again, I like Gardner. This is not a slam on him, but I think he had a bad day. I think Aiden O'Connell had a very good day. And again, Gardner, 2 interceptions in the red zone. That's not good. I want to go and talk about, I talked about Merrick's interception and Epps. I want to talk about Jacorian. Now, I have been the only one that I'm aware of talking about Jacorian since the season started, and a lot of fans have thrown him away. The reason that I've talked about him so much is because inside the building, they're talking about him so much. His mind is in a different place. I believe Nate Hobbs disagrees with me, and I think Nate Hobbs is certainly an authority. I'm not claiming to know more about this team than Nate Hobbs. Nate Hobbs disagreed with me, and I don't know that he really disagreed, but he certainly had his teammates back when I talked about a confidence issue. That ain't an issue anymore. JB now is playing with confidence, speed. He's not thinking. He's just playing. I mean, he made that play today. He made a couple of plays today that were just wowza moments. The old Duffy Doherty, you may remember him. He was the coach that broke the color bearer in college football. He won 3 national titles as the head coach at Michigan State. Duffy Doherty believed, and he had a mantra that's pretty much accepted around the NFL and around college football today, that players make their biggest improvements from year 1 to year 2, and teams make their biggest improvements from game 1 to game 2. Obviously, this isn't a game, so we're talking about JB, but he looks the part. I think he's going to be competing for a starting spot. I'm not ready to predict he gets it, but I am ready to predict he's going to be competing for it. He looks different. You can tell he took care of his body. You can tell he's been watching film. He had a rough rookie year. And I always say a lot of people, not all, want to throw rookies away. And that's just so dumb. I think there's a lot there, a lot of talent there, and I think he could be special. So good. It was good to see JB. I want to talk about anger among the team. I alluded to this a couple weeks ago because I talked to some players after 4th of July. But it was talked about publicly a couple times today. But these players are angry that teams are picking them to win 6 or 7 or 8 games. They're angry about it. They feel insulted. And they feel very angry that Antonio Pierce is being ranked on some places as the 29th best coach in the NFL. But what I really like about it is they admitted today, I think it was Robert Spillane that admitted it, but hey, we talked about it. We sure have. And we know what we have to do to change it. These Raiders have found a way. I learned this, quite frankly, I learned it from Irvin, Magic Johnson, and Michael Jordan. Um, Great players find a way to put a chip on their shoulder. They just find a way. You can give them a compliment, they're going to take it the wrong way. Oh, hey, I want you to know I think you're a really good player. Oh, I'm not great? Man, I got to tell you, you're my favorite bull. I'm not your favorite player. They just find a way to put a chip on their shoulder. And it's this Raider team has hung their hat on the disrespect that we've been reporting about all offseason. And normally you'll see players that'll say, "Oh, I don't read anything," and I I I, I laugh. because a couple of times this offseason, people have written stuff and I've had players send it to me. Um, Nothing we wrote, but other things. And so they're talking about that. And hey, whatever gets them a chip on their shoulder, God bless them. Excuse me. Whatever gets them that chip on their shoulder, eat for them. Get it. Let's go. Make it happen. So good stuff there. I want to talk about Harrison Bryant. He had a touchdown catch today that was phenomenal. You may remember as soon as the Raiders signed him, I was very high on him. And I know going into the draft, their intention was him, Cole, and Michael Mayer. And then Brock Bowers, like a gift from God, fell in their lap. Um, and but Harrison Bryant looked exceptional today. Michael Mayer looked very good. Wouldn't call him exceptional, but I would say he looked very, very good. And I told you yesterday, he looked fantastic. He was very good today, and that's going to happen in camp. Brock Bowers had a rough day, but he's adjusting to the National Football League. He was the best player in the SEC, the best level of college football, but none of those teams compare to the NFL. None of them. And it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. And nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Going back to Aiden O'Connell, he hit Devontae Adams on a fade route that was just perfect. And I'll tell you what else it made it perfect. So he puts it right over Devontae. And so Devontae was able to turn his back and watch the ball into his hands. Now, why is that important? Because you put the ball between the receiver and the out of bounds line. And when you drop it over his head, the only one that can catch it is him. It was just a beautiful catch, and he's able to slow down. Then he uses his body to keep space between him and the defender. I will tell you right now, Devontae Adams is the very best in the National Football League at using his body almost like a pick in basketball. Okay, another point I want to make going back to Jacorian Bennett. He struggled last year looking back, seeing where the ball is. In the NFL, you can get away with a lot if you're playing the ball. He's doing that. He's doing that. It's very impressive to see. I want to talk about Tom Telesco. He talked to some of us in the media today. Talked about why he wanted to move practice to Costa Mesa. He talked about rest, recovery, and regeneration. How important that is. And when it's 115 in Vegas and it's 75 today, I mean, you're literally looking at a 40-degree difference, just a 40 degrees. And it just helps with rest, regeneration, and recovery. That's one. Number two is the camaraderie of getting all the guys together. Another thing that Tom talked about today was the Gallup retirement. I was told by somebody on my staff that some people were taking shots at me for not talking about JPJ and Gallup, which is just, you're welcome to do whatever you want. I don't care. But the Gallup literally shocked them. And what I am told happened was that as camp was getting closer, Gallup just didn't want to take a paycheck from a team. And if you know what, if your love for the game or is not as strong, or maybe you don't want to be there, you want to be with your family, whatever it may be, you don't steal money from the team. I have all the respect in the world for Gallup. Now, I believe after OTAs and minicamp, he also realized he was going to be 4. He wasn't beating out Trey Tucker. Just wasn't going to happen. And so I think there is do I want to keep doing this? A lot of people would have said yes because the money was good. But do I want to keep doing this? Okay, if I don't, then, or if I do I want to do it and be the 4th guy? Is it worth all of the disciplined eating and the weightlifting and the sleeping and being so careful with everything you do to be the fourth guy? And it took Telesco by shock. And I saw some people trying to spin it like it was a shot on the Raiders and a shot on Telesco. I can't say anything about people are allowed to say whatever they want, no matter how stupid it sounds. And because I had people sending me emails, Hondo, I saw this online. What do you? I'm not even going to read it. I'm not going to dignify it. It's stupid. If you want to read people that have stupid takes, that's certainly your opinion. But I'm a professional, and I don't do that. And you can tell people who just have an agenda. They wanted Derek Carr to fail, or they wanted him to succeed. They wanted Aiden to succeed or fail, Gardner succeed or fail, Antonio Pierce, Tom Telesco, whatever. Whatever happened to just letting everything play out? And you know what? I think if there's anybody in this who deserves a finger pointed at him in the retirement of Gallup, it's Gallup, and it doesn't need to be this finger. It needs to be this finger. Hey, you know what? Congratulations that you just don't want to play for a paycheck. I think Raider Nation deserves a big, big thank you to him. And that's not on Telesco. And anybody that paints it like Telesco just has an agenda, and just learn to not listen to those people. I'm literally at the point now where with some emails, I'm just not even going to respond to them. If you want to listen to people who are consistently wrong or have an agenda, just don't email me with it. I don't have time for it. I mean, it's stupidity. I want to talk about um, JPJ and his injury. It's only going to be a few days. That's according to Telesco. Colton's going to be 2 weeks. Now, I was told by somebody who would absolutely have direct knowledge that they're just being extremely careful with Colton. They know what they've got with him. If it were game week, he'd be playing, but there's no reason to rush anything. He has a shoulder, so does JPJ, shoulder. Now, I think it's imperative for JPJ to get back quicker than Colton. I think you just take your time with Colton. There's nothing to rush. You're going to get tons of reps for your backup guys, and you know what you're going to get from Colton. JPJ, I don't think there's concern like he's not going to get healthy, but your best ability is availability. And coming into after the draft, they wanted him to get a starter's job. And I think that could be very difficult for him. I think it could be super difficult for him. Not saying he won't. I just think it will be difficult. And so the quicker he's back, the better for JPJ. Um, I want to talk about a couple other things that really stood out to me today. And I'm going to have some video up tomorrow. I hope you watch it. But Rob Ryan coaching defensive backs today. The man is a defensive savant. He's so fun. First of all, his players love him. They don't like him. They love him. I mean, it's a genuine, heartfelt love. And the way he coaches guys and the way he puts them in position and the way that he teaches, but he does it with a sense of humor. The Raiders are really fortunate to have him. He's a talker. So was his dad, Buddy, and his brother Rex. The last regime hit him. They were not going to let him talk. I love that this one says, yeah, he can talk. Put him out there. I love it. I love it. But he's a consummate professional. I really encourage you to watch that video. I got some great video of the defensive line work and the quarterbacks. Again, that'll all be up tomorrow. I really encourage you to watch it, share it. It really takes you inside training camp to see and experience what's going on. If you're a coach at a high school level or you're a coach at maybe a pee-wee level, there'll be some drills that you can learn from and do. Overall, on this day for the camp, I give it a B plus. Again, I know there's going to be people that are going to take onus with my thoughts on Aiden O'Connell, but I know what was thought of inside. They want him protecting the football. There was one play, he's rolling, and I'm not going to get into a ton of details, which I shouldn't. It wouldn't be fair to the Raiders. but he's moving and everybody's covered. Now remember, there's no pads. So he just tosses the ball out of bounds. Then another one tosses it on the ground at a guy's feet so he wouldn't get um, a penalty. So he just intentional grounding. And then, the pass to Doss, the pass to Devontae, some of those touchdown passes, just very good. I thought clearly coming into a camp, Aiden was the one. Um, and I don't think there's been enough to make a difference. But clearly, I think he's put the gap between him and Gardner deeper because AP has made it clear. I want ball. I want ball security from my quarterbacks. And again, I talked about this a few days ago. Maybe it was as much as a week ago, but you get what I'm saying. I talked about this, that this is a danger zone for Gardner Minshew. And yep, pads aren't on. So I don't think there's been any separation he can't overcome. But Aiden O'Connell's looked really good. All right, next I want to talk about Zamir White. Um, I have always told you I loved his power, I love his ability, I love his feet, I love his vision. But something happened today that really got me. I mean, I was like, "Oh, that's good. That's good." I've talked to you about the importance of playing football with your eyes up. You can't worry about who's at your feet. You can't be looking down at your feet. You got to just play the game with your eyes up and your head on a swivel. There was a play today where a guy tripped. And so he has a guy in front of him. And my first thought was, oh, dear God, don't trip. Because you don't want these guys going to the ground and getting hurt. And one of the guys goes down, he slipped. And I mean, Zamir never took his eyes off the guy, just hopped over him, kept going, and scored. I even at Georgia, I've seen good vision from him, and I've talked about that. I have not seen that kind of vision. That was impressive. That was NFL elite type stuff. Uh, that fascinated me. 100% fascinated me. I want to just talk about two more players, and then I'll get you out of here. I promise. Jack Jones is playing loose, and I'm going to be very frank. I was concerned. He played great last year, but I was concerned he was going to come in playing a little bit tight because he played so well, wanting an extension. I really thought that was going to happen. My own personal opinion. I thought that was going to happen. No. He's cool as a cucumber. Now, I've said this 100 times. I love Jack Jones. He's one of my favorite Raiders. I love the guy. I love his character. You say, wait a minute, he's had some problems. Yep. And everybody has a past and everybody has a future. And I, for one, believe in that young man's future. I like Jack Jones. I like him a lot. And he is all over the field talking to everybody. He's talking to young players. Um, and it's weird calling him and Nate Hobbs, the old guys. Jeez, oh, Pete. But they are. But again, I'm really watching JB, watching him a lot. But the other guy I want to talk to you about is DeCameron Richardson. He got a chance today to make some reps, and he's a rookie. He's learning. But I'm going to tell you what I like about him. There was a couple plays where he maybe learned a lesson. Okay. No pout in him. He's like, back up. I want another rep. I like that. That young man hasn't. Now, listen, I didn't know him, but I liked him coming out in the draft, and I liked him when the Raiders picked him. I don't know him good enough to say that I like him personally, although everything I know about him I like. And I've heard nothing but praise about him. But I like that kid's fight. He got it now. He's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and I'm telling you, the best defensive backs. I'm going to tell you, I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember him, and he's bigger, but he reminds me of Dre Bly. Remember Dre Bly was an all-pro corner, played for the Rams, played for the Lions. He just got some Dre Bly, just some Dre Bly there. I like the youngster. I like the young pup. He's not a dog yet, but he's a young pup. He's getting there now, and he's got some fight. He's got some fight now. This is one of those guys. You know, I grew up in a big family, so when the food gets put in the middle of the table, everybody goes for it. You know, and he's one of them guys. There may be six guys at the table and only five apples. He gonna get one of them five now. He's not gonna be the last guy out. He may not be the biggest guy. He ain't gonna be left out. That's the Cameron Richards. That kid's a fighter now. I'm gonna tell you something. He's impressed me. He has. And today, again, he had a play where he learned a lesson, which every rookie does. But man, jumped right back in there like, let's go, let's fight, let's go at it. I got to show you. I put one bad thing on it. So really, what you're talking about is a short memory. Great players have short memories, and here's why. You ever seen a guy? He makes a great play and he gets up and does all of his dancing and all that kind of stuff, and goes back the next play and he's like talking smack, and bam, the guy he's supposed to be guarding goes right by him for a touchdown. He allowed one good play, cost him the next one bad. Then have you ever seen a guy make a bad play, comes back, he's all depressed and down, they beat him again because he wasn't ready for the next one? That is not the Cameron Richardson. That kid has a short memory. You beat me? Let's go. Right now. Me and you. Let's go. I'm not leaving that on tape. Not leaving that on tape. We got to go at it again. I like that. I like that. He just got a little bit of grit in him, just a little bit of a little bit of sassy, like Dre Bly. Just that. I like Dre Bly. Had great relationship with Dre Cover. Just salt of the earth guy. One of the finest people you ever meet in your life. But Dre on the field, he had a little bit of sassafras in him now. He'd go at you. I'm seeing a little bit of that in Cameron Richardson. So we're going to watch the young pup, watch him become a dog. But I'm just telling you, early on, and when you take OTAs, mini camp, and now training camp, stock up on Mr. Cameron Richardson. Last guy I want to talk about, Dylan Laube. I called him Smurf yesterday because he's so little. I know at the combine they said he was, 196 pounds and 5'10". Okay, that's great. I wasn't at the combine. I was at the combine, but I wasn't in the room when they measured him and weighed him. All I know is I know how big I am. I know how big the people he stands next to are. I will believe them at 5'10", 196. But if I were guessing, I'd say 5'8", 175. Just whatever. Kid's making plays again today. He just keeps popping up. Let me tell you a great story of how I can equate this. Years ago, there was a young man who played cornerback named Darquez Denard, and he played a very, very small school. And he had a player on his team who was really good. And so as the coaches were watching his teammates film, they just noticed this kid kept making plays. And they're like, is this kid getting recruited? No, not by anybody. I think he was from Georgia. I should text him and ask him, but I'll do it after the podcast. And they're like, man, we got to look at this kid. So they offered him, and he goes to Michigan State. Of course, wins the award as the best defensive back in all of America. Number one draft pick overall, great draft pick, has a great NFL career, talking about Darquez Denard. And he got his career started because he just kept showing up on tape. And I'm telling you, Dylan Laube and I'm like, there is that kid again. And by the way, I found out yesterday, I told everybody he reminded me of a game my children used to play called Sonic. It's called Hedgehog. It's called Sonic the Hedgehog. Some people told me, so I apologize. I didn't know that, but that was what I was referring to was the game Sonic the Hedgehog. And what happens is always you just. I made a joke to someone today. I was standing next to somebody. I said, "Man, there's Michael Jordan again." He goes, "What?" And I go, "23, Dylan Laube." Just when you think you're going to overlook him, he does something. Now, last thing I want to talk about, but the Raiders are working with these new kickoff rules at maybe seeing if they can get some defenders to kick the football. Then all of a sudden, instead of 10 defenders and a kicker, you got 11 defenders. I mean, let's be honest. There's very few Pat McAfees who, when that kid was a punter, a lot of you only know him as a media entity. I knew him as a great football player, but who now is a great media entity. But there are very few kickers with his mentality. And so they're thinking, let's put some defenders out there. I expect the new kickoff to have a lot of tight ends, safeties, those type size players. So if you can get another guy out there, just another thumper, think about it. Think about it. I like where the Raiders are going. Just looking at a bunch of different things. They're just exploring and looking. But that Dylan Laube now, that young man, he's going to be special. He's going to just be, and I don't think he's going to be. See, I said yesterday in the podcast, and I, even though I told people not to take me out of context, they did. He's not Barry Sanders. He's not close to Barry Sanders. He's not even remotely Barry Sanders. But one skill that he has that Barry did is Barry was able to stop on a dime, give you 9 cents change, and go. Okay, Calvin Johnson, I covered him. Calvin, it would take him about 3 strides before he was up to full speed. And I mean, he was massive in size. He was the fastest guy on the field once he found his wheels. But it took him about 3 strides. Barry Sanders could go from a dead stop to full speed instantly. It was nuts. It was nuts. Dylan has a little bit of that. Now, as some of my staff are like, people are saying, gee, I hope he's half as good as Barry. No, he's not going to be half as good as Barry. He ain't going to be there. Barry was elite. Barry walked away, or he would have set the rushing record so high nobody would have broke it. But he didn't care. And he had a lot of respect for Jim Brown, who was his dad's favorite player. It's why he just walked away before he broke Jim Brown's record. I'm just telling you, Dylan Laube, they're going to find ways to get him on the field. He is a Swiss Army knife. And that's the kind of guy you just create. That's the kind of guy. I had someone on the Raiders mention to me because they saw my podcast yesterday about I want to see his ability strength-wise to get off the line of scrimmage. And they talked about, there's a lot of things you can do. You can bring him in motion, put him in H-back position, maybe just a lot of little things that you can do. And I got one other note here that I looked over and I forgot. I am thoroughly impressed with Jakobi Meyers. He is an absolute stud. That's I want to read for you something that I got on him. All right, I must have deleted it. But he is outstanding. And now what I'm about to say is not disrespectful of Davante Adams. So if you hear it as that, you're just looking for trouble. But Davante's so good and Jakobi is so unselfish that Jakobi will just kind of sit back and he isn't a look at me kind of guy. That young man is a superstar. And he is so well respected by his teammates. I think he's going to be so much of a weapon this year. And I just want you to remember what I'm saying. I think the Raiders are going to have to invent ways to get him the football, not just throwing the ball. I think they got to look at a bunch of different ways. That kid and I say kid respectfully because I'm an older person, and he is a kid compared to me. I have children older than him. But that young man is a fine football player. And if he was on a team without Devontae Adams, I think he's an all pro. And I think he's talked about as an elite player. I look for this to be his biggest year. If you are in a fantasy draft, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to throw you a solid. Take Jakobi Meyers, even over Devontae. Take him. All right. And that's not a slam on Devontae. I want to make a little bit of announcement. I'm going to be on Sirius XM uh, talking Raiders on Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Excuse me, at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Pacific. I mean 12:30 p.m. Pacific in the afternoon. So if you're listening on Sirius XM, make sure you tune in. We'd love to have you on there. Going to be talking about some things from camp and who are some Raiders to watch in picking your fantasy team. So again, this was our day 3 report. I want to thank you all. We put the video up of Gardner Minshew, of Aiden O'Connell, and Patrick Graham, who spoke today. Go check those out. And from us to you, thank you, everybody. I hope you have just a wonderful day. God bless you. And Dexter Ernest Wayne, Daddy misses you, buddy. I love you.